And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge post-draft edition. I'm here with Aaron Larsoul, who was in the Lakers war room as it all went down.
I was
As
at the
they,
facility. I was
you were
at the
in,
facility. I was
you
at
were
the
right
facility.
next
There you go.
to Rob Pelinka as he
Yes.
made the call to both of the guys that the Lakers drafted.
Well, I mean, somebody has to get the coffee, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to go over here. A lot. I think there's a lot of Lakers specific stuff. Obviously, they have two new guys, that feel at least that are going to be parts of next year. We still are waiting on some undrafted free agent stuff. Interesting. One thing that really caught my attention late in the draft was Chris Livingston. Rich Paul apparently telling teams not to draft him. That is,
I don't think that's what he said. I think it was he was telling certain teams not to because he had a promise somewhere in the second round. I think that's what the tweet said.
I think it's somewhere in between there.
I'll look at it right now.
He tweeted a lot, so yeah. If you find it cool,
Yeah, it was.
But I took
definitely
it to
shams when I
mean
saw
that like, hey, like kind of a Reeves situation. Let's just back off here. Let us pick our spot. We have a promise for whatever next year, and because of the relationship that Clutch has with the Lakers, that caught my attention, and that is something that I am going to be looking for as well. Also, somebody that
yeah, you know what? We're both right and we're both wrong.
yeah,
I just
it was
read it
kind of like I
quickly at the
said.
facility. Update here: Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul began calling teams in the second round and requested them not to take client Chris Livingston. So you have that part right. And then I read this quickly at the facility. Yeah. It's believed Livingston has a set draft spot in the second round.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's kind of, yeah. Maybe
those are two different things.
He was calling was the team that had the second round promise and told him not to. I don't know. That is weird.
Yeah,
contradictory. In Sham's defense, though, he sent out, and Woj also. There was all kind of, there's all kind of typos and mistweets and all that. These dudes are sending out like 300 tweets in the last, few hours or so. So
you know what they didn't send? You know what tweets they didn't send?
Uh-oh, I'm nervous.
Player trade tweets. We didn't get it. Like it was contract dumps. That was it. As far as like rotation players who are going to make differences next year, didn't happen. Well, here you go. So the Warriors are trading Patrick Baldwin Jr. to the Wizards as part of the Chris Paul Jordan Poole trade. As far as
that makes it even worse.
What?
For the Warriors.
Does it?
Yeah.
Is Patrick Baldwin like any good? And I watched him and I didn't think to myself
he can really shoot it, and he is currently the tallest guy on the Warriors roster. He's kind of a think of Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah. The Warriors are acquiring the number 57 pick from Washington and taking your guy, Trace Jackson Davis, somebody you were hoping you texted me that you liked.
Yeah, he was, yeah, well,
he really slipped.
I liked him. Yes.
Yeah. I was also hoping he would fall, out of the draft, but kudos.
Oh, by the way, to the people that are not live, if you guys are listening to this tomorrow, the Lakers launch tomorrow, we're almost through the second round, but we're recording this with just about a little bit, a few handful of picks left.
3. So, I want to start macro because I think there's going to be plenty of time in the next days and weeks to discuss. Okay, there's Chris Livingston to the Milwaukee Bucks at 58, but it is interesting to me that we did not get any impact players moved on draft night. That is a new one. And especially given, everything I had heard heading into tonight was look out for all kinds of movement, get ready for this, get ready for that. You have movement for a variety of reasons, right? You're going to have movement from teams that are trying to get money on their books to hit the salary floor. You're going to have teams trying to shed money if at all possible. You're going to have teams trying to add to their rotation because of how wide open the field was this year. And lo and behold, nothing. It was a very quiet draft night.
I mean, not nothing.
Rashawn Holmes, Davis Bertans, those guys move the needle for you?
Well, let's also, I mean, we brought it up already. Like it technically, Chris Paul, I would say moves the needle, right? Especially with some interest from the two Los Angeles teams. It wasn't like during the draft, but it was today. And then obviously, well, Chris Paul twice getting traded and Beal. So there have been some names that have moved the needle. But as it relates to, yes, I think Dallas, the Dallas and then Dallas and OKC and then Dallas and Sacramento. Rashawn Holmes is not a huge name. Davis Bertans not a huge name, but their contracts are a big deal, right? And they're not huge money contracts. Bertans was 18 and Rashawn Holmes 12 and then 13. Mm-hmm. So I was interested in the cap space positioning, right? Because Dallas, with the first deal, trading out Bertans and taking nothing back and being willing to move down 2 spots for the cost of getting off of Bertans, that opened them up. Say that again?
Well, they got the guy
and
that
Lively.
They
wanted Lively anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So, who the Lakers also had a lot of interest in. So I was interested in that because that gave them an opportunity. They don't have any cap space now because of Kyrie's cap hold, but that gave them a path to open up not max level cap space, but in the 30 million range, which opens up some interesting names for them.
Draymond.
Sure, or like Kuz maybe, or even an offer sheet to Austin. Like having 30 million in space really opens you up to some possibilities. But then it was kind of a strange move. I know they liked the French guy that they drafted at 24, but they also with Sacramento they gave Sacramento now the opportunity to have 35 million in cap space by them getting off of Rashawn Holmes, which was strange to me from Dallas's perspective because it cuts into that space. Mm-hmm. And he didn't play in Sacramento's rotation. They were playing Alex Len ahead of him. And they didn't have any big guys.
He being Rashawn Holmes.
Yes, they didn't have any big guys other than Domantas Sabonis. So that was strange to me because all that good work that Dallas did to open up that cap space and getting off of the bad money or the terrible money, they just took back some bad money. So I know they really like. I can't pronounce his name, but I know they really like who they got at 24. Yes.
Something, yeah.
So, I mean, that was interesting to me. So now, like, what does Sacramento do with that cap space? That, they were the 3 seed last year. They're probably going to lose Harrison Barnes, but that makes them possibly a destination for, maybe Kuz or maybe Draymond or, look, they don't really have a need for guards, but, that could be an offer sheet to some restricted free agent. So that was interesting to me, even though the names at this time are not particularly jaw-dropping. It gives some suitors and some teams that, because we've thought of the teams with cap space as, San Antonio and Detroit, Indiana has Houston, exactly. But Dallas and theoretically Sacramento, or Sacramento and theoretically Dallas, are probably places that could be more appealing for a basketball fit for potential unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents. So I thought that was interesting.
Agree with all of that. The part of it that I continue to find interesting, because we are really in uncharted territory here, uncharted waters when it comes to this new CBA, and it literally legislating that it is more difficult for teams above that second apron to add talent to their rosters.
The two ways are starting to pop in, but continue.
Yeah.
If you're watching live and you see me continuously looking at my phone, it's because
same. I have mine right here. So actually I probably lift it up so it doesn't look so obvious. But
responding to texts and all that still working.
So like I really think after the league lost its GD mind with the Rudy Gobert trade, and then even Donovan Mitchell going for the number of picks that he went for, and
Yeah, I mean,
DeJounte
Donovan was
Murray
really
going.
good though.
He was, but like,
DeJounte, and now Atlanta is drafting more guards, which would indicate to me that they are not all that excited about paying DeJounte's next contract.
yeah. But
Right,
the
drafting a
reason
guard
I
right from underneath the Lakers.
what's that?
Drafting a guard from
Yeah,
underneath
right.
the Lakers.
Yeah, the Lakers liked Kobe.
Uh-huh.
But so I do think though that I think the market has corrected. It is no longer in the act of correcting. It is no longer like figuring it out right now. I think it is figured out with this new CBA coming. You want as much cost controlled talent as you can possibly get. And if you're going to move a first rounder, it's going to be for a stud. Flat out. Or you're getting some draft compensation with that player coming back. And I think tonight really reflected that the market has fully corrected. Do you agree, with the premise?
I mean, basically. Yeah, I think teams
Like,
are
I think
starting.
pick swaps are going to be more popular. I think
The second,
two-way draft compensation and
all
second
those
rounders
second
and
rounders.
stuff. Yeah.
I think that first rounders, teams are holding on to first rounders more tightly. I think that's partially due to the upcoming CBA, and teams like Denver, for example, just won the title. You're gonna have to, they have 3 max guys, and they have Aaron Gordon makes 20 something, and they were able to get contributions from Christian Brown and Bruce Brown, who were on a rookie deal and an exception. So I think you're going to have to continue to do. I think it's even more so. But I do still think that when, let's say a player of that level, like KD last year, if that guy becomes available, or that, I mean, KD's a top 12 or 15 guy all time. So like, let's say Dame, for example, right? If Dame becomes available, it's still going to take a whole bunch of first round picks to get Dame. I think that though, what you're seeing is for the guys a notch or two beneath that, they're still stars, but like for example, take the Bradley Beal thing. It's a little different because he had the no trade clause, so that restricted his market some. But for the top 10 guys in the league, I still think it's going to take tons of first round picks. But teams are less willing to do that for the DeJounte Murrays of the world, for the Bradley Beals of the world. You know, those like 20 to 40, top 20 to 40 guys. You're just not going to get that kind of haul anymore.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of reflective of what the pay scale is going to look like too, where there's the middle earner is not going to it's going to continue to disappear, I think, in the NBA, and we'll see what that continues to look like and what the players union does to combat it. But as it stands right now, I do really think that in this new CBA, just about every resource is going to be devoted to putting together, your 2 stars. And then from there, if you can get a third, maybe try to make it work. But for the most part, that's where you start to see all of the cost controlled asset management there. And I think this was the kind of first step towards that. And by the way, we still don't know the full extent of the CBA. Like, I was talking with Raj, we've heard, and I think this is on purpose, but we have heard about all of the machinations that are limited when it comes to roster building, that have been limited. But on top of that, like, we haven't heard what the actual tax, the financial taxes are going to be.
You want to know why? Because it's not done yet.
There's that.
It is agreed to. The teams don't have it yet.
Yeah. Well, I think also, like, I think that is, like, this is one of the places where I think the players union kind of dropped the ball. They're looking at it from a perspective of like, well, it isn't actually a hard cap, but 8 out of 10 people that I've spoken to in terms of ratio are all saying this is a hard cap. Like, no matter what background I'm talking to, and I've spoken to people from big markets, from small markets, mid markets, whatever. They're, the people who know these kinds of things are all saying, yeah, this is hard. This is basically a hard cap. And
I mean, yeah. I'm gonna do my Darius. Yes and no. I mean, I think for a lot of teams it will be, but yeah, okay, yes. I think for a lot of teams it will be, but not for everyone. Well, Phoenix doesn't care. Although Phoenix,
right now,
shockingly, I mean, new owner and you want to make a splash, but Phoenix is not going to receive the real punitive problems of it until down the road, because shockingly, it's maybe the highlight of the Bobby Sarr era, as if you like to call it. They don't pay the tax, so it doesn't really get punitive until it's until you're in the repeater, when you start losing draft picks and such. So, or having them removed to the end. So I think effectively it's going to have, and there's always unintended consequences for these kind of things, right? The last big one was the designated veteran extension, or like the super max. Yeah. And the idea was to give the small market teams such a financial advantage in retaining their own guys, the best players, as opposed to, it's not that big of a difference. And I'd rather go take, I'm willing to take 20 million less to go play for the Lakers as opposed to the Kings or something. Yeah. The unintended consequences, it made those teams have to make a decision, like Sacramento, right? Like, we don't want to give Boogie Cousins, whatever, the 5 years, 250,
Paul George
6 years ago. So then you have to trade him. So there's going to be unintended consequences from this. I don't like it, but I don't like it as someone that, follows two of the 4 or 5 or 6 highest spending teams in the league. So of course I'm not going to like it. The other thing is I think we should encourage, I think the league is better when there are super teams, right? Because either you root for them, or you love to watch them win, or you love to watch them lose, right? It gives rooting interest, and dynasties are good for the league. So I don't know. The idea feels a little half baked to me, but I do think we are starting to see teams pay attention to it and prepare for it. I mean, look, obviously the Warriors with trading Jordan Poole, getting off the extra 3 years of Jordan Poole and taking in a year of Chris Paul. So teams are paid. Boston with their trade, like, it seems like a tiny, small little thing, but Boston getting pick 25 as part of the Kristaps Porzingis deal from Memphis, and then trading down again 6 picks gets them to pick 31. Why does that matter? Well, because that's the second round. It's the first pick in the second round, which means there is not an automatic amount that you have to spend. They're non-guaranteed contracts, as they would be in the first round. So they probably saved, depending on what deal they reach with the second round pick, they're saving a couple, 2, 3, 4 million. They're at least saving probably 2 or 3 million, 2 million this year. But over the life of the 4-year contract that they would have to give the 25 pick, that's probably a 10 or 12 or maybe $14 million difference when they're going to have to pay Jaylen Brown coming up here. They're going to have to probably bring back Grant Williams. They already have Jason Tatum. Now Porzingis, if they want to bring him back after this 1 year, like, those little incremental moves matter when you're up against that second apron. So, and you may not get a lot of teams' their favorite pick in the draft. There are teams, if you said, I mean, not when Wembanyama is here, right? But there are a lot of teams that just in a random draft, the pick they would most like to have is 31, because the difference in quality of player generally from 20 to 31 is probably not going to be very different, and it gives you a lot more financial flexibility.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Lakers really quick, right, as you are about to hop back onto your phone for some Lakers stuff. But I want to start before we talk about the players, and I'm going to spend tonight looking at the players specifically and From what I've seen so far and from what I've heard so far, I'm at least compelled. I'm at least interested.
Mm-hmm.
The thing for me that I'm having a hard time kind of square, and I think this is where you and I are going to find some disagreements is, look, at the end of the day, the return on the trade is going to define whether or not you are going to make a trade or a team is going to make a trade. We just spent the last 10 minutes talking about how first rounders aren't going to be used on role players anymore. And yet those teams that have those role players are expecting to get back first rounders for those role players. And I think that's kind of what we ran into tonight as an explanation for why moves for actual players weren't made as much. So we'll kind of see, I think, over the next couple weeks and stuff, what kind of trades open up for second rounders and stuff. But for me, not just using number 17 on a player and not trading that pick to go out and get a starter or two, even given the price or given the value of first rounders, but also using it on what appears to be more of a project, more of an upside type play. Given the fact that the Lakers were just in the Western Conference Finals, it's the kind of thing that I can't help but get bumped by. It's the kind of thing that I stub my toe on.
Yeah.
So explain that for me.
Okay, so this is what I say. So this is we used to talk about this when doing the hook last season, and when I would go on spaces and just pop in and try to give some insight, and with a lot of with Russ, everybody yelling they're not doing anything. And the point always comes back to, and this is not a Lakers fan thing specifically, but Lakers fans are probably the primary culprit of this, is that it takes the other team wanting to do something also.
Yeah.
Right. The Lakers don't just get to pick and
Override
choose,
trades.
go down the list and just say this one. Right. You ready? You want to see this show is too easy and too fun. We have to, not too fun. This is not ridiculous enough. So I'm going to make this ridiculous.
Okay.
I have a reputation for bringing lots of friends to games, right?
Okay.
Friends of the opposite sex. Oh,
yeah. I saw that one.
Bad news about Lonzo. And so people will say to me, why don't you have a girlfriend? You have all these girls. They're all so great, whatever. Why don't you just pick one and do something real?
Okay.
And my pushback is that's such an outdated thing, right? It's the idea is that every single one of those girls is dying to be with me. And I'm just and I could just go pick one, right? There's just a lineup and I get to pick and choose, right? They have agency in this too. Do some of them want to be with him? Yeah, maybe. Do all of them? No. So the thought that it's a crude analogy, but Lakers fans, and again, not exclusively Lakers fans, have this tendency to think that everybody should be available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't work that way. Right? Okay, I get a starter, or as you said, a starter or two for the 17th pick. Okay, whom? How do you know those people are available? So to be disappointed in something that you don't know, there's an assumption that there's always a deal there. Sometimes there just isn't a deal, right? Sometimes there is the 29 other teams in varying measures have very smart people running their operations too, right? And they all have different objectives. So I get the option is, or the alternative is okay, I'm sure there are some guys that I don't know. There is nothing that I heard of that made me say yes. The Lakers passed up an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers took calls. There were calls made for once the 17th pick came up. This is also another thing I think you and I have talked about, maybe not on the show, maybe offline, is that teams were much less willing this year as opposed to years prior to just kind of take a flyer on a pick, right?
Yeah.
I'll trade you pick 17 3 days ago. It was much more so teams were wanting to see who was going to be available at each slot. Like there were a ton of teams that were trying to trade, like earlier in the day, were trying to trade with the Pacers for the 7th pick. And the thinking behind that was that a lot of teams wanted Anthony Black, and everybody knew that he was going to go. Washington was going to take him 8th. So a million teams were trying to jump ahead of that to Indiana 7th, so they could get him. But once Orlando picked him 6th, that dies for Indiana because everybody wanted the guy who left.
Yeah.
So like part of it was like, all right, well, who's available at 17? That's going to impact the desperation for teams if they have somebody in mind that they want. So what I can tell you is that, at least from what I heard and what was brought to my attention, the Lakers did not pass on anything that would make you stub your toe. There wasn't something out there that the Lakers just didn't do, right? I've heard you like one or two. I know the two that you're saying with the 2 starters that have been linked to the Lakers for 2 years, that was not available. Okay. That was not available before the draft. That was not available at 17. It just wasn't available. As far as the, like, I do get it, right? Like the
premise.
Like the Lakers were in the Western Conference Finals last year, and you want to get better now, right? LeBron is however old LeBron is, and you want to get better now. I understand the premise, and I don't disagree with the premise. The Lakers need more reliable guys, more rotation guys. But if that's not there, that's not there. And look, you don't have to, like, nothing is set in stone. Anything and anyone is movable. So I do understand the premise, but my pushback is just like, unless you know of something that's actually available, then like I think it's hard to hold Rob's feet to the fire to say like, why didn't you do this when it's kind of all theoretical?
So all fair. And you know, I also over the course of the day did hear that same thing. Not that like, you know, you need your stuff confirmed or whatever, but I did hear that with so much movement potentially. Now we didn't see the same type of personnel movement that was anticipated, but that like for a variety of reasons, teams did want to see exactly who was available, which shortened windows for these transactions to be agreed on. And if you shorten a window for a transaction to be agreed on, that is already usually pretty difficult to, put together, then that makes it that much less likely. And we saw, over the course of the draft, I was getting texts about like, so-and-so thought they were getting so-and-so, and the prices are just so far off between seller and buyer right now that it just wasn't happening. And I think
right. And to your earlier point and my point about like teams want to see who's there before that, like teams have conversations like, hey, would you do this if this guy is available? Right. That does happen. But when it gets down to it, there's 5 minutes.
Yeah,
you have 5 minutes to make a pick. Like, and so if you don't already have a framework in place, because like, for example, Cam fell like, some places had him 4th, most places had him about 8th. He was there in the 20s, right? So this happens all the time in the draft where it just doesn't go how you think it's going to go, right? So if you don't already have that framework in place, especially with so many moving parts, like the Lakers took 3 or 4 maybe calls at 17, right? But like in 5 minutes, like that's stuff to do.
Yeah. And look, you use the phrase holding feet to the fire. I'm not quite there, and I don't think I'll get there this offseason. I think, with the way that the trade deadline went down and because the Lakers made it to the Western Conference Finals, like there is an amount of goodwill there that, the front office has earned itself. That said, because like it's almost like a double-edged sword. That with that goodwill comes higher expectations, and you're saying to yourself like, well, shit. While I get and understand what you're talking about, where Lakers fans do have outsized expectations. It's because of the amount of success that their team has offered them. We've been a spoiled bunch, man. Like,
Yeah,
like
but
I
a
don't
lot of yes,
like
but a lot of that
when
is
I'm a
from
Vikings fan,
4 years
I don't
ago.
when every time like a player becomes available because in the NFL, I'm not
He's
like
not going to the
the
Vikings.
Vikings are gonna like I don't sit there and like do jersey swaps for the Vikings because I know that shit isn't happening. But with the Lakers though, like that is part of the culture, that is part of the expectation, and I do think that like we'll see how the rest of the offseason plays out.
Hmm.
From what I've heard to this point, the likeliest scenario here is that they run most of this roster back with a couple tweaks here and there, depending on what's made available to them. They're still on track for that. They can still bring D'Angelo Russell back. They can still opt into their contract with Malik Beasley. They can still guarantee Mo Bamba's contract if they want more size up there and they want a longer look at that. They can see what Max Christie presents at the 2 this year. In ways that he didn't get the opportunity to do so next year. I think Dennis Schroeder has probably priced himself out. One player I have my eye on, given all of the movement up front that Dallas has done, is Dwight Powell to see if he's available at say the taxpayer mid level. But I think like there's some things that can be done here given what the Lakers are working with, and again, the guys that the Lakers drafted. I don't believe that. Like, I believe they can still be traded. Up
Yeah,
until
you can trade them.
yeah, like they can still be traded. I think there's a time when they can't.
I think 30 days. I think you have to wait 30 days. Well, no, you have to wait 30 days
After they sign
once
their
they
contract.
sign. Once they sign the contract, you have to wait 30 days.
Yeah.
Until they signed, you can trade their rights immediately.
Right. That's yeah. And so there could still be some movement here, and we could still see what this offseason looks like. I just I find myself agreeing with a lot of people right now. On all sides of the every point along the spectrum. I understand the people who are really excited about somebody who is described as like a taller Dennis Schroeder. That's exactly the kind of player defensively that the Lakers needed in this postseason. There are a lot of people who are really excited about Maxwell Davis, I think his name is, a first round talent who fell down to pick number 40. So like I understand that there's excitement there, but I also understand and find myself more kind of aligned with the people who were looking at them coming off of a Western Conference Finals and being told, hey, here's these two young guys who probably won't play for you next year.
Sure. It's Maxwell Lewis, but yes.
What did I say? Davis?
Yeah. But that's fine. Anthony could be his brother or something. No, that's fair. What you're yes. He is more of a project. But what the context always matters, right? And what was the opportunity cost? It's the same conversation about keeping the pick or trading the pick. Is okay, like sure, I understand like being not as excited about bringing in two guys that you say maybe are not going to be able to play this year. Okay, and but what was the alternative? We always have to consider that.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
no,
if there's somebody that was picked later that you say, okay, you should have taken this guy because I'm sure he could help now. Okay. I mean, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, maybe I would agree, maybe I wouldn't. But like,
I'm not a draft guy to be able to say that. And look, I'm not a draft guy, so I'm not going to be able to say that one way or the other. The people who I follow, who are draft people, like the Lakers draft, and so like that's a good start for me.
Are they inclined to be favorable towards the Lakers?
Some yes, some no.
Okay.
I try to not just follow Lakers people because it sets my expectations for what the Lakers have to be able to do to compete in a very competitive league.
Yes.
But yeah, I look, nothing happened today that makes me think, oh God, this season's for naught. They're writing it in. Like, no, they're mailing it in. No, I don't feel that way at all. I am really excited to like go to Summer League and if these guys are still there, watch what's going to be a really interesting summer league team, right? Christie's probably
Gonna
going
be
to
a lot of
play. He
wings.
better play. That's my time. My kind of team.
I know.
That's my kind of team.
I know. Did just for you.
And they're going to be like Lou Williams is going to really like this team, right? Because they're going to be wearing yellow, so it might be like the lemon pepper Lou Lakers. Like,
Wow. Yes.
yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes it's white, but
Yeah.
yes, the Lakers often wear yellow for summer league.
So yeah, I look. I think it was a fine draft. I think the people who were going into it expecting, like even like when I was talking to people around the league, it was mostly like, yeah, they might move that pick. It might be this, it might be that, but like it wasn't. I never heard from anybody. They are, it's more likely that they do than they don't. And I tried to make that known. I said personally, and this is where I have to cop to my own biases, because my preferred outcome would have been that they move 17 and go out and get a starter for shooting guard. But so when I predicted that I think they do move it or whatever, it was more of a prediction. But when I was talking about like what I'm hearing, for the most part, all I was hearing was like, we think it's going to be really active, but who the fuck knows? Like, I cannot stress enough how weird this CBA is with the second apron. Like, it's you call Steph the boogeyman. That second apron is the boogeyman around the league.
Yeah, it is.
And I think everybody is trying to figure out, like, they're trying to build this plane while it's in midair, how to compete while avoiding the boogeyman. And if you are going to experience the boogeyman, how can I blow way through it so that the benefits outweigh the costs there?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Like, yeah, what Phoenix is doing, I mean, Phoenix is going to be a disaster a few years from now. But like, winning a title means you never have to say you're sorry. I don't think they're going to win a title, but
yeah,
I mean, if we're not trying to, like, I think we should encourage teams to do anything they can do within the rules to win a title. So yeah, they're going to be a disaster, but I do kind of agree with the strategy. Like, I don't want to dip my toe into the second apron, right? Like, if I'm going to take all these penalties, I'm going to do as Matt Ishbia has done and give the middle finger to the CBA. They're not doing anything illegal. So I give them props for saying, like, fuck it, we don't care. Like,
yeah,
cool, y'all got your little apron and your CBA, we don't care.
Yeah, and we'll see what it looks like,
But I would also say, like, I understand. I don't think you're frustrated, but like a little underwhelmed, I guess, is how I'm reading your reaction.
No, I just think the draft was the draft. I don't know enough about the draft, like, in terms of I'm going to be honest. I probably should have done more studying up on the actual players, but I was so hoping that 17 would be a starter that that I didn't. So I have homework.
But what I will say though is that, and I do understand whatever underwhelmingness you are feeling, or disappointment, maybe not disappointed
Lukewarm.
in those picks.
Lukewarm is how I would.
No, you're disappointed that the Lakers were not able to get somebody whose name you knew before today for that pick. So I understand that, but my not pushback, but what I would say is, and I understand it because there are like certain tent pole like markers of an NBA season, and draft night is one where I always say this is like, other than Hennessy or unnamed cognac is delicious, my like probably catchphrase from our time podcasting together is deadlines create activity.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or white people stuff.
Yeah, white people stuff. That's right. I didn't like Harrison in our group chat was like, I want to hear on Friday's episode about how
we don't have time for that. Harrison.
And I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I don't even want to do that. It's too sad.
Yeah.
It's too depressing. But that is white people stuff. Anyway. So deadlines do create activity. And this is one of the times during the year where lots of movement happens. Right. And so this is one time where I could say, like, it feels like something didn't happen because today would have been one of the days where something would happen generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is there's still some more of those, right? Like, free agency is upcoming. Like, the roster as it is now is not the roster in October. So there's still time to iron out some things, work out some things. Yeah. I'll say that. The roster as it is now is not the roster I expect
Here's
in training camp.
I'll just quickly summarize
No, you good.
why I feel the way that I do. And I would say lukewarm is like the best way to describe it. Not hot, not cold, just kind of it is what it is.
But the reason why today feels like a missed opportunity to you, I think, is because this is one of those moments in the NBA calendar where stuff happens.
Yeah, and we might be finding out that because of this new CBA, that might not be the case anymore. That like draft day is going to be a day where like 30 teams line up, take their guy, and then like everybody goes home. I really think the CBA is going to be a disaster. But anyway,
I don't know.
All last year, and I've told you this privately, but all last year, all I kept saying was give these guys a chance. Give Anthony Davis a chance. Give LeBron James a chance to take like a group of even decent role players and see what they can do with them, right? Give them a roster that makes even a little bit of sense, and let's just see what they're able to do with it. And then they finally get it, and they immediately go on a run, turn their season around, go from the 13th seed into the play-in, win the play-in, beat the 2 seed, beat the reigning champs. And yeah, they get swept in the Western Conference Finals, but they get swept in the Western Conference Finals by a total 24 points to the team that eventually went out and beat the shit out of Miami in the NBA Finals, right? So like it's a pretty good team that they lost in that series too.
Indeed.
And like this is where again I have to catch myself and catch my own biases here, because I was so right in wanting a team that makes sense and in wanting those guys to have a chance at competing with a team that makes sense. I was so right there that I can overextend that logic here and think, well, let's just keep that good money rolling after good. Let's just keep that. And it might be, that the Lakers just overachieved in a weird part of the season where you have teams that are tanking more than they would earlier in the year. And, with a weird part of the season where injuries play a bigger role than they might normally.
And you have teams like Denver who just was so set where they didn't care.
Right. Yeah. So like it's so you have that weird sample size that comes into it, but that doesn't necessarily apply in the playoffs. And yeah, Memphis was shorthanded, but the Lakers still it was still a pretty lopsided 6-game series there. And by the end of the Lakers beat the Warriors to an extent that Steph was sitting there on the sideline with a towel over his head while his season ended. That usually is indicative of one team being pretty noticeably better and tangibly better than the other. And again, yeah, they lost to Denver, but the team that they lost to wound up going out and winning a championship in like definitive fashion.
Convincing. Yeah, Denver was the best team in the league.
So like I just, when I sit here and I'm kind of lukewarm from not adding to a roster with more reliable, I guess tested or players that I am more comfortable gambling on next year. That's why. Is because like it's an extension of the confirmation bias that comes from being as right as I was last year and heading into this year thinking, well, why not build on that, And it's not to say that the Lakers didn't think that. I'm not saying that at all. But right. Like with the way that I feel from this draft, it's because this doesn't necessarily align with what I thought was going to happen coming off of the amount of success that they had last year.
Sure, except for that's ignoring the context that my analogy from earlier, like it requires that to be available.
Yeah.
You can wish and hope and want and have a vision all you want. But like if pick 17 comes up and there's nobody worth trading that for, and the best guy that you have on your board is somebody that, you possibly, not the Lakers, you possibly think like is going to take a little time and not a rotation guy. I don't know what else you're supposed to do, right? Yeah. You got to take the best guy you can find and hope it works out and trust the scouting department and Joey and Jesse, who have done a really good job at this kind of thing for a while now. So I understand your frustration. Frustration is probably too strong of a word, but I understand why you're feeling like you feel, but that doesn't mean that you just like get to snap your fingers and there are good options otherwise available. Like, are you all that excited? Like, are you really excited about Brooklyn's guys?
Both of them, yeah. Like if they were there together, but if it was just for one of them, meh. You know, I think Dorian Finney-Smith is a good wing. I think
Fine.
Dallas really missed him.
He can guard you. He's fine.
Like when everybody was really quick to blame Kyrie Irving, and I'm not going to sit here and like defend Kyrie Irving or whatever, but like when Dallas the season went in the shitter after they traded for Kyrie Irving, it was like it wasn't because Kyrie Irving was bad, it's because they traded away their one good physically gifted defender.
Yeah.
And that kind of player, that was if you add Dorian Finney-Smith to the roster in that series there, you have one more guy to make Michael Porter Jr. think a little bit. You have one more guy to kind of throw and see what you can do with Jokic.
One more guy to get
him.
ignored on offense.
Possibly, altogether possible, but not to the extent that Vanderbilt was. Like he's a better shooter than Vanderbilt. So
I guess.
I look at and look again, like you said earlier, we aren't even disagreeing is the annoying thing here. There is still a shit ton of time for this to all be figured out. And also, by the way, the Lakers, let's just say they run it back, they're gonna be better than they were last year, health, permitting. I'll knock on wood. But if they run it back next year, they're gonna be better because they'll have more time to figure out where everybody's going to be.
Continuity that they haven't
had in years. Yeah. So I like I said, I'm lukewarm. I'm not upset. I'm not disappointed. I'm also not over the moon about it because like I can't get myself to like really get super excited about a project given what the Lakers actually need going into next year.
Yeah, I mean so I would be more with you. There were like every team has their own draft board, right? And like, okay, Victor Wembanyama's first on everybody's draft board. Okay, like cool. But after that, there's some disagreement, right? There's some teams will have guys even maybe 20 or 30 spots different. But for the most part, people are kind of generally in similar tiers. There were two guys that the Lakers thought were possibly going to be available at 17. That they just weren't, right? And so the Lakers draft board went as it went. They took the highest rated guy.
It was one of those frustrating because I had a pretty good feeling for who the Lakers liked at that spot. And it was, how you do like a fantasy football draft and you're looking at
right.
You're like,
everybody, it's always, you have somebody in the queue and you're like, nobody knows this dude. And it's always the guy right before you that takes him.
Well, no, not only that, but like you'll have multiple guys in the queue, right? You're looking at it. You're like, all right, so I'm 5 picks away. I should probably have like 3 guys here, right? 3 guys here and give me one of these 3 guys. And then bang, bang, bang. Yeah. It was like, I saw it happening. I was just like, cause you send all of these texts over the course of the day and I'm just like, man, they're probably pretty pissed in that room right now. They're I mean, not pissed or whatever, but like just the same. It's the same feeling that we have in our drafts.
This is what I can say without giving too much away.
We need a sounder for that.
The guy that the guy that was going to the Lakers. That was picked before, obviously, picked before the Lakers could get him. Even his agent was like, the team that ended up taking him, like a couple picks before the team that took him. Mm-hmm. Even his agent was like, they're not taking him. He's going to be a Laker.
Yeah.
So it happens. This is what the draft is. It happens. But I mean, like,
one thing I heard, and this is an actual like I mentioned this on the show, but then after I said it on the show, I had somebody reach out to me and say this is actually kind of how it's starting to play out. So this is actually a compliment to the Lakers drafting and scouting department. But when teams find out that the Lakers are interested in, like, the Lakers scouting department is interested in certain guys, everybody's kind of ears perk up, and it's like, they're on a bit of a hot streak, and they're looking at, like, oh, what do they see with this guy?
I will also
and
say,
that's part of why, like, the Lakers are so secretive as far as their leaking. Especially as it pertains to this, is because, like, as soon as that word gets out there that that's somebody that they could potentially be looking at, other teams start looking at it, like,
So the two guys that were on that the Lakers, well, Shafina was one of them. Was one of the guys that the Lakers had identified as somebody that could possibly be available and want. Now, to be fair, like, for those that, like, don't watch a lot of college basketball and are not familiar with guys and just want to look at, value, he was generally, you could see him at like 9-10 in mock drafts. Most mock drafts had him around 13. So that's a crude way of looking at it, but a crude way of saying that, there's probably some value there at 17. Somebody else went before that who would have probably been the pick, but the Lakers are happy with who they ended up with. Now, I think he's going to be, like, strangely enough, I think, and this is generally the opposite for young guys and rookies, but I think he's going to be able to contribute more defensively than offensively at first. I think he's farther along defensively. And he's older. So, yes, he's a freshman, but older. So his body's built up a little bit more. But to your point earlier, like, those minutes are probably going to go to Max. So I get it.
I'm excited for Max, by the way. Like, I think Max is going to be really good this year. I think he's going to be one of those guys that people like, again, to the point I just made a second ago, people are going to be like, God, another guy? What the fuck? We see this with the Dodgers all the time, where the Dodgers will have interest in some player and other teams will catch wind that the Dodgers are interested in that player. And they're like, oh, what are they?
What are we missing? Yeah.
What do
they know we don't know?
Yeah. What can we get in on here that the Dodgers are liking? Because the Dodgers have had such a run here of, the Justin Turners of the world and the Blake Trinan before he got hurt, so many guys at the late side. I don't even mean to do that one. He's just a good example of it. But, like, the guys who, have the pedigree.
No, keep going, because there's more former A's there. So keep going.
I just, people get the point. Most, but like, the Dodgers have found so many of those guys that when teams catch wind of, the Dodgers are looking at so and so, other teams start looking at that, and, like, now what you're starting to get in baseball is agents floating that the Dodgers are looking at guys that, just so that maybe their guy can get a bit of a free agency
to go
bump.
to Blake Trinan.
I'm sorry.
It wasn't bad enough my team is leaving. That would just, like, had ripping my soul out, my baseball soul out. I had to get one more Blake Trinan in on the way. Okay, cool.
I have my quibbles with Adam Silver. I really do. Clearly, anybody who listens to the show or follows me on Twitter know that I have my problems with Adam Silver. But fuck me, dude. The MLB commissioner, whose name is I'm blanking right now. Rob Manfred. I legitimately do not like that person.
You're getting no argument from me.
Like, when he's being a smartass about
everything
about like everything going on in Oakland, I'm just like, this guy, man, like, at least
like Max Muncy.
Was he a former A?
I
guess he was, huh? Yeah.
Andre Ethier.
Now, I mean, like, that was forever ago.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. All right. That is going to do it here. I'm going to let you get back to your Lakers stuff. I have some homework to do on some players whose names I am going to have to learn as we prepare for Vegas Summer League, which is only in a couple weeks when we get to start to see these guys in action. The plan as of right now, after this, so I'm going to post this right when we're done talking.
Oh,
The plan right now is to talk to somebody tomorrow afternoon about Jalen Hood Shafino, right? Do I have that?
you have some homework to do, brother.
Do I have that? Did I have
You
it?
have some homework to do.
That was it, right? That was
That
it.
is- you did just fine. You did
JHS.
just-
The acronym doesn't even like.
You did
flow
just
off.
fine, brother.
So we are going to talk about
Who
him
was
specifically.
the second round pick again?
Maxwell Lewis.
That a boy.
Maxie Lewis.
And who was the first round pick again?
Jalen Hood Shafino.
Where did he play?
Indiana.
Where did Lewis play?
Pepperdine.
There you go. Look, you're
Yeah.
on. Now we're getting there.
I'm a quick learner.
Muscle memory.
I'm a quick learner.
Muscle memory. You're getting there.
Aaron, I greatly appreciate you hopping on, dude. I know how swamped you are today and how swamped you are immediately going to be after this conversation, partially because I'm going to be peppering you with texts for the rest of the night.
I got it. I don't sleep much as it is. Tonight's going to be a long night, so I got you.
But I do legitimately hope everybody who is listening to this at in your car tomorrow, whenever it might be, or watching this live right now, understand how cool it is to have somebody with the insight that Aaron does come on here and deal with my bullshit. So Aaron, I greatly appreciate it. Had a lot of fun on All Access Lakers with Raj.
Yeah, thank you for doing
during the
that.
draft. That's always fun too. So make sure you guys check out that when we go live there. And until you guys hear from us next, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Aaron Larsoul, and this was the Lakers Lounge.